The San Francisco 49ers fall in Week 16 to the Miami Dolphins, 29-17, a game where it was a little bit too difficult for the 49ers to do everything, even though there were some standout performances, and I think one specifically that really hits for me with the 49ers in a loss at Miami. And, of course, we'll take a peek at the draft order now that the 49ers are officially eliminated. All that and more coming up on today's Locked On 49ers.
You are Locked On 49ers, your daily San Francisco 49ers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On 49ers. Brian Peacock and Eric Crocker at BD Peacock at Crocky209. Thanks, everybody, for making us your first listen on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. For those of you watching us on YouTube, you can tell I've got a little road game going on right now, so hope everyone else is having a good holiday. I'm already home for the holidays for the week, so that's where I'm at, and I hope your hearts are warm wherever you are this week. And even though the 49ers lost this game, thanks to all the everydayers out there that are hanging out with us all year long. A note about our everydayers in a minute, Croc, and welcome to all the new listeners as well. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube or wherever you are listening to this podcast, which is brought to you by FanDuel. Big return right now on FanDuel for new customers. You can place a $5 bet and you'll get started with $250 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. All you got to do is visit FanDuel.com to get started. Before we get into the game a little bit, just a big shout out to all our everydayers, everybody who listens, even if you only listen once and you're not an everydayer, appreciate you. We see the Spotify Wrapped and stuff, Croc, at the end of the year. And it was really cool to see how many people listen to us all the time and how many people listen to us every single day and where they listen from. And the craziest number I saw was that people listened to Locked On 49ers from 63 different countries around the world, Croc. I can't even name 63 countries. So I mean, that's cool. It's wild, man. So appreciate all the listeners out there. And especially now, I think a lot of listeners, they have a little bit more difficult time listening after losses. Some fans couldn't listen for 6 months or more after a Super Bowl loss. And there's some other fans that get so mad they can't listen after a loss. Some fans really want to hear what we say after a loss. And, of course, it's going to be an interesting offseason, a lot to do, a lot of Brock Purdy, but a lot of NFL draft as well. And so we'll take a quick peek at the NFL draft order as well at the end of this podcast. Now that the 49ers, Croc, are officially eliminated, and it wasn't because they lost this game. They were going to be eliminated anyway with the loss, but even before the kickoff, the 49ers realized that 1% chance was out the window, and it was a 0% chance that they were going to make the playoffs. And so that's done. We already knew it was done, but officially done now. The 49ers are not going to make the playoffs this season. As for this game, Croc, it's 29-17 loss to the Miami Dolphins. They had a little knockout punch at the air at the end with the long Devon Achane 50-yard touchdown. I think my big takeaway from this game, and it really is something that's been a theme throughout the season, Croc, is that even though, until the very end, the 49ers were competitive in this game and it was close, but I think we expected a team to be more than competitive. And I think it's been difficult for the 49ers to be, they're fighting hard just to have tie games, let alone lean on teams and go win a whole bunch of football games. It just hasn't been that good of a team. And this game was the same. It was like, okay, evenly matched teams, same record coming in. And the 49ers it seemed like such difficult work just to stay within a score of the Miami Dolphins at times.
Yeah, I think we saw that a lot of this game. I was very interested to see just how the 49ers would come out and how they were playing, what type of energy they would have. And I think I saw a positive and negative aspect to that. The positives were they came out, guys were flying around. I thought, you know what, these guys are playing really hard. And when Eric Crocker scored a touchdown, to see the joy from all the players and they're celebrating with him and they're happy for him, that was a group of guys that clearly they haven't given up on each other. They haven't given up on this season. And I think that's something as a young head coach and myself, like I can show my guys that. Like, look at how these guys are playing, even in the face of adversity, the things that they're dealing with really on and off of the field this season. I would say the negative part with the energy to me was probably a lot of the just undisciplined penalties. the late penalties, the stuff after the snap, the going and hitting the guy when he's on the ground, shoving the guy, several minutes, seconds after the whistle is blown. There was a lot of things that I feel like when the 49ers are playing well and it's a Kyle Shanahan coach team, you don't see the 49ers get penalties like that. So I would say, again, the energy part of it, especially early on, I love seeing that. But the other side of things, it was a team that was kind of doing their part in the elegant tank and making sure that the 49ers didn't win that game, even though that's not what their goal is on the field. They're trying to win the game. And I think when you have those kind of penalties throughout a game, it makes it tough to win. And I think that was just really a big reason as to why the 49ers season has played out the way it has, even more so than, obviously you have a lot of injuries and stuff you're dealing with, but watching this team today, it was very clear that, you're not ideal at the running back position, but a lot of talented guys out there. You got Deebo making plays and looking like prime Deebo Samuel. You got Kittle making plays. He's looking great. You got Purdy making some throws. Some of the defensive guys making plays downfield. Diamador Lenore tapping away, tipping a would-be touchdown pass and, changing the trajectory of the ball. Like, there were a lot of things that I felt like were cool, but man, when you do those things after the whistle, that's why the 49ers not just lost this game, but have lost a lot of games throughout this season. A lot of very undisciplined play.
I agree. Undisciplined and sloppy, and even some veteran players that have been in Kyle Shanahan's offense for half a decade. They're like going the wrong way or like bumping into each other. You'll see like Kyle Juszczyk bump into George Kittle. Like, if there's anybody who knows what to do, it's got to be George Kittle and Kyle Juszczyk on a play, right? And that wasn't necessarily in this game, but I've just seen it throughout numerous games this year. There's been guys line up in the wrong place. There was the most animated Kyle Shanahan was in this game was after the Jake Moody missed field goal, but I think he was just as mad about the penalties. Pearsall getting an earfall on the sideline as well from I think it was Leonard Hakerson, the wide receivers coach, that was all over him on the sideline on the bench. And so you shoot yourself in the foot multiple times, and then so you have to kick a field goal, and then you miss the field goal too. So like everything just feels too difficult for the 49ers. They're just not. They just weren't that good of a team this year, even with guys that were making some plays. And there were some guys making some plays in this game. Everything's too difficult. And I think it probably starts with the offensive line. As pointed out in the chat, especially early in the game, there's just no run game there. Brock was under pressure. And again, it made the whole entire offense look difficult, even though there was guys like Kittle and Deebo that were making plays in this game.
Yeah, I thought Kyle Shanahan did a really good job of not just getting the ball in the hands of Deebo Samuel, George Kittle, but there was a screen to Kyle Juszczyk, right? Like just getting the ball to playmakers' hands in space, whether it was right now to kind of offset maybe the offensive line that's not playing as well, or some of the things to get the ball into George Kittle's hands, some misdirection stuff. Just get the ball in these guys' hands and let them do what they do. There was a lot of that, but then there was also some tougher situations. And early in this game in the red zone, Brock Purdy took a sack where there was a guy kind of doing like a army ground crawl, then wraps Purdy's legs up, sacks him. There was another sack where I felt like the pressure happened pretty quick, and the concepts it was more of deeper pass concepts where there was no outlet for Brock Purdy just to get the ball away. So we saw some of that. And then, the interception at the end of the game where, guy gets beat, got pressure in his face. Brock Purdy still tries to throw the ball, isn't able to get enough on it, and it gets picked off, and I think he was trying to kind of layer that throw. So the offensive line in this game definitely didn't do the 49ers any favors.
I mean, it's just really funny looking at the chat and how different people's reactions are to Brock Purdy. And he did make some really good plays in this game. And some people are like, well, you can't blame Brock Purdy. And some people are like, Brock Purdy's terrible. You have to blame Brock Purdy. I think I'm somewhere in the middle. I thought the best play of the game from Brock Purdy was when he used his legs out of the pocket. And I think they were probably calling some bootlegs to get him out away from that left side of the line, especially after Jalen Moore went down and Aaron Banks went down. So you have Spencer Burford and Nick Zakelj on the left side, and Purdy's bootleg out to the right side. And it looked like he was going to try to run for the first down, but then he used his legs to pressure the linebacker to come up. It opened up a window for him to hit George Kittle right in front of Jalen Ramsey for a big play. And I thought Brock Purdy missed some throws, and he's been throwing too many interceptions, and he was picked off in this game as well. But he did make some big plays. He's not going to get a game ball from me, but I think that's just what he's been. It's been kind of up and down. And you look at the line, and he ends up throwing for 313 yards. So the 49ers kind of abandoned the run game early. Patrick Taylor, as the starter, got 8 rushes in this game for 24 yards. I think they saw that wasn't going to happen. So they used a lot of wide back with Deebo, got Deebo out on some screens, some short stuff. He had the slant for a touchdown as well. Brock Purdy made a couple plays.
Give a game ball to Deebo right now.
Game ball to Deebo?
Yeah.
Dude, I saw a guy out there wearing number 1 that looked, for the first time this year, maybe a lot like the guy who used to wear number 19. So I think we can start there with the game ball for Deebo. Like, good on him.
He
it was
awesome.
effort.
He was awesome, and I think he was awesome from his first carry. This is the guy that we've definitely on this podcast been very critical, I guess you could say, of him. Just his play and what it looked like throughout this season, and has he, regressed a step? And man, he's not making guys miss. And then in this game, I feel like he was making the guy miss every time he touched the ball. On his first carry of the game, he ended up getting called back for a holding penalty, but he looked quick. He hit the hole. He sidestepped the guy, made a guy miss, made another kind of little sidestep, picked up about 9-10 yards. I said, wow, that looked like the Deebo of old, like the prime Deebo Samuel. And I think for the rest of this game, it was almost as if he said, you know what? Everybody's been on me. Croc and Peacock have been on me. The media is on me. I got to show y'all I still got it. And I think a lot of fans would have liked to see this version of Deebo throughout this season. But I think for me, it was good to see, like, oh, that's the guy. That's the guy that's my favorite 49er player to watch. Making guys miss in space. He had that crosser route, had a defender right in his face about to, try to tee off on him. And he was able to kind of sidestep him, bounce off of that, pick up more yards after the catch. I thought he looked, this is probably the best I've seen him run between the tackles ever. I mean, it looked good. He was fluid. And we talked about how, I think Kyle Shanahan has said it in the past, where he's like, man, I mean, if he just wanted to be a running back, he'd be a damn good running back. And I'm like, I don't know if I've seen that version of Deebo Samuel. And today I felt like for the first time, damn, if he was a full-time back, he probably would look good, because this looks good. Now, could he consistently do that? I'd say this year, kind of says the answer to that is no. But I was just impressed with how Deebo Samuel played the touchdown, breaking the tackle, dragging guys in. I mean,
3
just
tackles.
A lot of really good stuff from Deebo Samuel today. Definitely earns a game ball, if not for anything else, for being able to answer all the critics and all the negative talk around him.
Yeah, and last week he talked about it and didn't do it. This week he didn't say anything, but he showed it on the field. So that's what you want to see from Deebo. Effort, too. Breaking tackles. That's the Deebo we remember. So it was good to see that. And I think it was important for Deebo to remind people that he's not completely washed and he can still do some of those things. And now let's see if he can do it with some consistency here in the last couple of weeks going into 2025. And I wonder if that will change any opinions about him or change any plans about him in the offseason. Next, we got more game balls. And we're going to take a peek at the draft order now that the 49ers have lost another game and been officially eliminated. Next. Today's episode of Locked On 49ers brought to you by Prize Picks. If you love watching the game, you're going to love Prize Picks. It's the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy, whether it's football, basketball, or any of your favorite sports. Prize Picks makes your holidays bigger and brighter, and now you can win up to 1,000 times your money on Prize Picks. Plus, this holiday season, they're giving away $30+ million in rewards during Picksmas and offering 2 free picks in December. And when your picks hit, Prize Picks makes it easy to cash out. You can get your money in as fast as 15 minutes. And so Jared Goff, right? He went big. If you were looking at him, more than 230 passing yards. And they even had some shenanigans going against the Bears in that game for the Lions. Or Saquon, always good for it. More than 1 touchdown. That was the stat projection there. All you got to do is download the Prize Picks app and play along today. Locked On NFL is the code to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's right, $50 instantly when you play just $5 at Prize Picks. Run your game. All right, Croc. I'm going to let you give the next game ball because I have a feeling I know who you're going to give a game ball to.
Oh, next game ball. I don't think you know, but I'm going to say Brock Purdy.
Oh, I didn't know. Okay, I thought you were going to go a different direction.
I'm going to go with Brock Purdy. And obviously, the way the game ended, weird. There are some people who are like, Jennings was wide open, and if Purdy's able to, not be under pressure, he can make that throw. I thought the defender, like, he kind of predetermined where he was throwing it for sure. Like, whatever he saw from the defense, he was going to throw that no matter what. I thought the defender was in a really good position, regardless of if he was hit or not. Now, some people say, nah, he would have been able to layer it over the defender. And maybe we've seen him make that throw, but it was kind of risky. It was kind of risky. But again, he's made those throws, whatever. But aside from that, I thought he did a lot to keep the 49ers in this game. The run game was not working at all. You watch him have to, take off with his legs. He led the 49ers in rushing in this game. He had 20-something yards rushing. Like, that led the team. He was someone who I felt like fought throughout this game. And there's going to be a big conversation about Brock on whether how much he should get paid or not. I mean, we've had that conversation already. And I don't think that Sam Darnold's game-winning touchdown pass today helped the Brock Purdy conversation settle down any less. But I like Brock the competitor, and I talked about the energy of these players as they got into this game, and I felt like Brock competed as well. I get it; people are going to be upset with the outcome of it, especially that interception. His ability to close out these games. Now we've seen several times where he's just fallen short, and maybe that, at least this year, that's who he is. But just the competitive aspect of it, and there were some big throws that I felt like he made, some timing throws that were good, putting some passes in really good locations for guys like George Kittle to catch and run. I was impressed with that aspect of it. So, no, O-line didn't play well, no run game. 49ers still had a chance, I think, in big part to Brock Purdy.
I mean, he did go for 300 yards in this game. Some folks in the chat disagree with you here, Croc, on the Brock Purdy one. And I thought, Croc,
it's a lose-lose. It's like if I say, I mean, you and I, we talk a lot off the air.
Yeah.
And we'll have these conversations, and you get to hear, just kind of the way I see it. But it's like when I give that perspective of it, which really, coaches always say, it's never as good as you think it is. It's never as bad as you think it is. Like, that's what they tell everybody. Like, coaches tell their players that. And I'd say that's very true with Brock. And I think whenever we talk about it's not as good as you think it is, but people think he's way up here, I get looked at as somebody that's hating. But then when I say it's not as bad as you think it is in a game like this where everybody's kind of dogging him, and I'm like, it's not as bad as y'all say it is, then I still get the hate comments. So I guess I just got to learn to live with that.
I thought you were going to go straight to the DB, Croc. I got to give a game ball to the young man, the rookie, number 0, Renardo Green, out there on Tyreek Hill, one of the best wide receivers in the NFL, if not the best. And can I say you locked him up a little bit, Croc? He was making plays multiple times on Tyreek Hill. I love seeing that. So I'm giving a game ball right away to Renardo Green. I thought for sure that's where you're going to go first with your fellow cornerback.
Oh, I was excited. So I talked about this play on Twitter. There was a play early on in this game where Tyreek Hill dropped the ball. Right, it was a third down throw. He dropped the ball. Then later later in the half, they came back to that same play and actually completed the pass to Washington, the rookie. But the timing of those throws, like, this wasn't. Let's say Brock Purdy. Some of these timing throws, and Brock Purdy, he's going to throw with anticipation, timing, all that good stuff. But a lot of them, you see these gaping windows where, hey, just get the ball out on time, and there's a huge window to throw into, and boom, you complete it, timing, rhythm before the other defender can come. Great stuff. Tua was throwing these timing throws on Green, where Green was in man coverage, and it was like the ball was on the receiver so quick that even with tight coverage, it was there before he could even react to try to knock the ball away, some of them. So there was the drop early on, but I'm like, man, that's a tough, like, when you watch it's like, oh, it's just a drop, but like the coverage was so tight and he squeezed it so well. I'm like, man, that was good stuff, like, by Green. And it damn near ended up being a negative play because the timing was so great. And again, the throw to Washington later in the half, they came back to it. And I'm like, I don't know how much better Renardo Green could cover it and maybe try to get his hand in there or whatever, but the timing was so good. So those are on just throws where there were potential catches. And I thought his coverage was really good. But even outside that, he was scrappy. I thought he was going in, throwing his body around, trying to make tackles. I thought there was a lot of good stuff that the rookie put on display. And I'm glad that Tony Romo, he pointed those things out, saying, this is one of the guys of the 49ers future. And these are things that we need to talk about with kind of the, coming to coming to know that the 49ers season was likely going to be over, which young guys are going to step up and show that, like, why they should be a long-term piece of this team. And I think Ronaldo Green, he showed, like, hey, man, I'm a scrappy guy. I'm a competitor. And even when you put this fast guy on me, I'm going to compete and challenge him at the catch point. And I thought he did a terrific job of that.
Yeah, Tyreek Hill was only 3 for 29 in that game, and then the touchdown, and that was on Charvarius Ward with the touchdown catch, the short little quick out there in the red zone. You mentioned Tony Romo. We have to bring up the graphic that they put on the screen, Croc, because I saw you retweet it during the game, and it talked about, like, oh, this is Shanahan style, and this is Mike McDaniel style, and then the Venn diagram and what they both do similarly, and it was like deep passing game for Kyle Shanahan. Like, wait, what? Like, that was just a weird thing to put on the screen and be like, oh, that's how they're different. The Dolphins throw short, quick stuff, and the Niners have a deep passing game. And I've always talked about it. The term is aggressively intermediate. There's not a lot of, short checkdowns and a lot of behind the line of scrimmage stuff versus some other teams in the NFL, because there's more and more of that around the league. So I can see why you'd say that's not dink and dunk, which it's not for the 49ers, but it's not a deep passing game either. It's not a downfield passing game. It's aggressively intermediate. We got to get the term correct. I've tried to help people out with that term. Everyone feel free to use it. Aggressively intermediate. That's Kyle Shanahan's offense, and that's what the Niners offense always is.
I think that it hasn't worked out the way you would like this season, but they've taken a decent amount of deep shots. At least that's what it feels like, especially the first half of the season. First half of the season, it almost felt like they're taking too many deep shots. And it's like,
longer developing plays, holding on the ball.
Long.
Yeah.
Get the ball out your hands. And I mean, heck, the 49ers lost the game to the Rams a week ago because they were taking a deep shot down the field. And the play before that, another deep shot. So I wonder if they're not making that up. Maybe that is Kyle saying, hey, ideally, I would like to take these deep shots. We're just not connecting on them with the efficiency that I ideally would like.
Yeah, I mean, he's never really put together a team that would be good at that. That's not the type of skill players he's put together. It's not the type of quarterbacks, aside from trying to go draft the one big arm quarterback that he did. That's never been a priority with personnel, or I think and maybe maybe that was what's wrong with the offense this year. Croc was not enough of the shorter catch and run stuff, not enough yak. And we'll see what changes are made next season for Kyle Shanahan's offense. All right, next. I only have one more game ball, and I want to check in real quick where the 49ers are in the draft order now, after falling to, where are they, 6-9 on the season after 16 weeks. Next. This episode of Locked On 49ers brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL playoffs, they're almost here. Niners aren't going to be in it, but it's not too late to get in on the regular season action either for the last couple of weeks with FanDuel and the rest of Week 16. And by the way, FanDuel, there's a reason they're America's #1 sports book, because right now, new customers can finish the season strong with $250 in bonus bets. And all you got to do is win your first $5 bet. FanDuel has so many ways for you to play and pick up a W of your own. If you love betting on which players will score a touchdown, tons of different props every single week, not just the weekly lines. Of course, you can find those. Tons of season-long props as well as week-long props as well, and live in-game betting. And which players will score a touchdown? How many points will each team score? And so much more. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. And that's FanDuel.com, or download the app. At your chance at $250 in bonus bets this holiday season. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. My final game ball goes to George Kittle. And it's basically, we could have just a weekly segment now about our praise for George Kittle, Croc. Pre-game, it's #1, like, in bold, all caps. Did you see the I think it was it Sean Payton? I think it was Sean Payton's call sheet during the game. They zoomed in on it, and it says run the ball at the top. It should say in all caps, feed George Kittle, right? That's what it should say on the top of Kyle's sheet. You don't wait long. He's the biggest mismatch you have. He's the best player that you have on offense right now. And he comes up big every single week. Came up big in this game, making some vintage George Kittle runs after the catch as well. Would have had a touchdown if there was a ball that wasn't batted from Brock Purdy at the line of scrimmage. And and was the best receiver on the field again tonight for the San Francisco 49ers. And he was somewhat featured in this game. I would have still liked to see more. We always talk about it. Like, double-digit targets every single week. Almost got there. 9 targets, 8 catches, 106 yards for George Kittle in this game. Game ball. And I think at this point it might be season MVP time for George Kittle because he's been so awesome for the 49ers this year. So fun to watch. So good in every phase. Still the best tight end in the game right now. And when they utilize him and they go to George Kittle, good things happen for the 49ers.
You know, I think I'm going to put this one on Kyle Shanahan. You just talked about, his targets, and the one incompletion was him wide open in the end zone for a touchdown, the ball that got tipped at the line of scrimmage. So we're essentially kind of talking about 9 targets, 9 catches. So what am I going to say? That's not enough targets. Like, let there be like a huge discrepancy in the amount of targets and the amount of catches that he's getting. But if he's having 8 targets, and 8 catches on 9 targets, or should have been 9 catches on 9 targets, I need 13 when you lose. Like if you're winning and the targets aren't way up or whatever, okay. But when you're losing these games, which the 49ers are, then I'm going to need a little bit more volume to the guy who's truly being a game changer. Just his run after catch ability. He's having some of these long catches. I think he's on a roll right now, and there's damn near a direct correlation between, his production and the 49ers losing the game. So definitely have to give him a game ball. He looked awesome again, but I'm definitely always going to complain if the 49ers lose a game and the efficiency throwing the ball to George Kittle is anything or not. The efficiency is good. You lose the game, but he doesn't have double-digit targets, because I feel like the more you get the ball to him, the more opportunities you have for explosive plays. But they did dial some things up to him for sure. We talked about some of the screens early on. That one right up the seam where he kind of snuck out, and you could see that they were doing different things to make sure we are going to get him the ball. Same with Ricky Pearsall. Like there were some to Ricky Pearsall where it's like, this is who we're going to. Let's see more of that, where we're dialing up things just to get the ball in some of these playmakers' hands. And I thought for the most part they did a good job of it with George Kittle. I just would like to see more, especially in the game where you lose.
I'm not a big tank guy, Croc. I think that you do more damage to your organization and your franchise, and the difference between picking 11 and 14 is not a big enough difference. I think for the 49ers, where they're at right now, if you can stay in that top 18 range, which it looks like the Niners are pretty easily, you're going to get one of those quote unquote first round guys. You're going to get a true first round type of graded player. And so, unless it's like, it's the difference between getting Trevor Lawrence and Zach Wilson. And look, Trevor Lawrence hasn't become the Trevor Lawrence we thought, but if you think it's a generational quarterback and losing an extra game helps you get that guy, get you Andrew Luck or whatever, I would understand why you would be rooting for a tank for a team. But I think it's more important to be a good team and take that into next year. And it's more important to have 53 good players on your roster than the one guy that you might lose out on who goes a couple of picks ahead. And I think there's going to be a good player for you there no matter what. And the 49ers are probably going to be picking in the 10 to 15 range no matter what, right? And I just don't think there's a big enough difference to be rooting for a straight up tank. I think you can gain more by having actually a good team right now that carries into next year and developing those players. And that doesn't mean that you can't do some things that might not help you win necessarily, but might help you win in the future, like putting in a different center. So let's see what the undrafted guy Drake Nugent has, right? He's not a veteran, but why would you not give him some run? Why would you not see a little bit more of Cowing, right? I did like that they featured Ricky Pearsall a little bit more. He got a lot of targets in this game. I think those are the types of things you have to do. That's not actively trying to lose or anything or tanking, but you are trying to develop at the same time as you're playing these football games. And so I'm not a big tank guy for that reason. I just don't think it's worth it. And you're building the wrong culture if you're trying to lose football games, and it's not worth the difference in drafting 11 and 14, in my opinion, where the 49ers would be right now if the season ended today, Croc, they'd be picking 11th. And depending on what happens with the Cowboys on Sunday Night Football, it's about to kick off as we go live here post game. And the Saints are on Monday Night Football. So if the Saints and Cowboys win, the Niners will jump up to the number 10 pick after 16 weeks in the NFL draft, maybe a top 10 draft pick for the 49ers this year. If both those teams lose, the Niners will drop back to 12 though, because tiebreakers, and the Niners and Cowboys had the same record coming into the week. Cowboys strength of schedule is the next tiebreaker after record. Cowboys have a lower strength of schedule, so they would draft ahead of the Niners if they're tied. And the Saints are already one game below, so they would be. And in fact, hold on, even if the Saints lose, yeah, you know what? I take that back. The Niners can't get to 10 this week because the strength of schedule, even if the Saints lose, they'll be 6-9, or even if the Saints win, they'll be 6-9, and they would have the tiebreaker over the Niners. So it's either 11 and 12, depending on what happens with the Dallas Cowboys tonight for the 49ers after 16 weeks of the season. You can get a really good player in the top dozen picks, Croc.
Right before we hit record here, I said that was really kind of a perfect scenario. You had a competitive game that wasn't like bad to watch, right? Like I thought there was like a lot of positive things to watch, and you got to see your team compete, but you got the L. Don't mess up the drafts. Like that could be the difference between like somebody who's potentially elite and then like some of those borderline players where it's like, that you might like them later in the first round. I get it. As a competitor, I want to win everything. I want to win anything that I do. But as a fan, I can sit back and say, you know what, it might be better for the 49ers to lose this game right now. So let me enjoy watching it. Let me see some cool things. Let me see some of these young guys. But also let me get that L from the 49ers right now, because that's going to help the 49ers a lot more than any win they can do when they're eliminated from the playoffs.
Yeah, you're eliminated officially. It's beneficial to have a better draft pick. You don't want to be bad on purpose, though. That's where I'm at with it. And yeah, you're not.
And they're not like that. That's why I like watching them compete. That was the first thing I said.
Yeah.
Watching them and watching Eric Crocker score the touchdown, everybody celebrate. Like these are guys that have not given up on the season. Let's go. You do not give up. But I'm not rooting for them to win. I am not rooting for the 49ers to win right now.
All right.
When May comes around, late May comes around, anybody just wish we should have won that Miami game? Like, nah, dude, it's over. Season's over.
Well, I will say, and it wasn't a Niners game, but I will always go back to the 2016, the final week of the season. And I'll probably bring it up at some point this offseason again and put the video up there. The highlights of it are insane. Go watch the highlights. 2016, it was the Niners and the Browns were going to have the top two picks in the draft. The Browns nearly won the final game of the season against the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think the Steelers were sitting Roethlisberger. It was a bizarre game. Each team kept giving the ball away to the other team. The Browns had a touchdown and tried to dive in, fumbled it through the end zone that would have won them the game. And the Niners would have ended up with the number one pick if they would have won that game. And the Browns just hilariously lost the game, even though the Steelers were trying to give it to them. And the Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch era would have started with Myles Garrett instead of Solomon Thomas if they had the first pick that year. So it does matter, Croc. It does matter to a certain extent. And it especially matters in some of those rare cases, and a lot of times it doesn't. A lot of times the difference between pick 11 and 14 is not a big deal, but sometimes you miss out on Myles Garrett. Sometimes you might miss out on a superstar quarterback, maybe with one win or one loss.
Or maybe an opposite line like that.
Right.
49 fans, they're clamoring for the 49ers to really address the O-line and find that guy. And picking that 11, picking that 14, that's the range. Those tackles and those elite guys or edge rusher. Like you want to add another elite edge rusher where you don't have to keep swinging at guys like Leonard Floyd and Gross Matos. That 3-4 pick difference right there, it makes a huge difference. At times it can.
And this looks like a really good draft to pull a defensive lineman, edge rusher, offensive tackle in those first 15 picks of the draft. So that might behoove the San Francisco 49ers. Just make sure you're in front of a couple teams to make sure you get your choice of the guy instead of not having a choice, you just pick whoever's left. So that's where we are right now. After 16 weeks, 49ers lost to the Dolphins 29-17. Croc and I back tomorrow. I want to have a little Christmas conversation tomorrow, Croc, on the pod. What would we gift the 49ers? What would we put under the tree for the San Francisco 49ers to end this season? And all types of discussions about what's going on with the team. We're going to start dipping into the draft a little bit more as well, taking a look at some names that might be there for the San Francisco 49ers as we get into this offseason. Thanks, everybody, for making us your first listen. Enjoy your holidays. Croc and I back tomorrow right here. Locked On 49ers.